Let us look at the program to compute the Euclidean distance between 2 points in a plane. As I mentioned previously, I'm going to use the mat.h library file. So let's include it in our preamble. Now there are two ways to write this program. Let me show you the longer way. So I'm going to assume that my first coordinates have the points P1, Q1, and the second point has the coordinates P2 and Q2. I'm going to compute my distance in float as a floating point number, because square root typically gives you a floating point number in most cases. I'm going to add some extra variables as and when necessary. So printf, enter coordinates of point 1 or point A. Read the coordinates from the user using scanf. Percentile D, comma, ampersand P1, ampersand Q1. Now I'm going to enter the coordinates for point B. So let me make a few modifications here. Point B would be P2 and Q2. Now, if you look at the formula, it's going to calculate the square of the difference of the x coordinates and the y coordinates and add them up. So let me name my square of the first coordinates as P1 squared or P squared, which is equals to power of P1 minus P2, the whole squared. So that's power of base and exponent. And the square of Q would be Q1 minus Q2, the whole squared. Let me declare those. So that would be PSQ and Q squared. You can give better names. So I can write this as P squared, and this one as Q squared. Next, I can calculate the sum, comma sum, and I can write sum equals P squared plus Q squared. And then I can calculate the distance by invoking the square root function and passing the sum. And finally, I can have a printf which says distance between A and B is percentile F, comma, distance. So I have used the power function. I have used the square root function. Let me run this program. Enter the coordinates for point A. Let's say it's -5 and 3. Enter the coordinates of point B, say 9 and 12. So the distance between the 2 points is 16.64 units. This is the first way of writing. It's a very clear-cut way because you're dividing the problems into, you're doing the computations at different levels. First, you're computing P squared, then Q squared, then adding it up, and then finding the square root of it. Now, as you get familiarized with programming and using different library functions, you can write all of this in a single line. And that line would be distance equals to square root of power, comma, P1 minus P2, comma, 2 plus power Q1 minus Q2, comma, 2. So this is allowed. You can invoke one function from another function. That's totally fine. So if I enter the same coordinates, I should get the same distance. Let's run this. Also, even though you are not using P squared, Q squared, and some variables, if you have them in your code, that's fine. It's not going to cause any harm. So -5 and 3, 9 and 12. The distance has come out to be exactly the same as the previous computation. So depending upon your level of comfort, you can divide the task into multiple statements, or you can write it into a single statement. If you are a new coder, I would suggest you break down the problem into multiple steps. And if you're maybe having 1 year or 2 years of experience, you can start writing it in a single line. It doesn't really matter. You can worry about optimizing it later on, but this is where you start.